Ladies and gents, have we got a treat for you? We've got the beautiful Maver Dynamite Baits Hayfield Lakes behind us, and we're going to give you our fishery focus, a proper rundown, lakes, pegs, baits to use, tactics, tactics,
absolutely,
everything.
This is something we want to bring you guys. We're here today at Hayfield, and it's a great chance for us to talk to you and try and help you with your own fishing. Even if you don't come to Hayfield, you might go to other venues where you think, that'll work where I go, the way they've talked about it, the way they've looked at it. So we're going to go over to Danny's Island and we're going to start a little bit of a rundown.
Well, this is Danny's Island, a lake that's got quite fond memories for me. Hopefully it'll have fond memories for Lee as well in a couple of months' time. Talk us through the pegs, Lee, because I know sort of like this bank a little bit, but you do know that far bank a lot better, don't you?
Yeah, I think to be fair, Rob, this sort of lake, what we've got to remember, and it's a key feature of Hayfield, is the lake's really deep. So once you get into the summer months, you are talking about targeting the fish in the upper layers, all right? You want to be coming here.
You say deep, what sort of depths are we talking?
I would say at its deepest, you've probably got about 14, 15 foot,
okay,
you know, but
right,
like 10,
deep,
12 foot is commonplace. You know, on a lot of pegs. Around the other side, there's some really deep pegs, and because of that, and there's a lot of fish in here, as soon as bait gets introduced, the water's warm, they're coming up.
So unless we get a really big spell of cold weather, those fish are going to be up.
Yeah, I mean, I personally feel like I've said to you before, I would say end of April, May time, all the way through till end of August, you're looking at fishing shallow.
Okay.
The Fishermania that is held here all the time is nearly always one shallow.
So shallow pole,
until
shallow
last
waggler.
year when it was pushed a bit later in the year and it was caught one on a bomb.
Yeah.
So like, you know, the Fishermania final that's here this year, I would almost be sure will be one shallow waggler, shallow pole, those sorts of tactics. Okay. You know, they are, or potentially if someone had some space in the edge.
Right.
Because again, it's shallow water. Edge fishing here, if you're coming on a match here, edge fishing's massive.
Okay, if you've got space, I suppose that's,
exactly.
If you've got a spare peg or something like that.
You need to have some room to do it. On a crowded day, not so much.
Okay.
But
so the far side, and talk to me about far side, because like I say, that if fish are going to get caught on the far side, it seems like a lot of fish get caught on a short pole.
Yeah, well, this is
those 8mm pellets
this is the main thing, because it's very deep all the way along that far side, you see. So what happens is the shorter pole where you can get a lot less depth, you can catch on the bottom. You're then looking at waggler down the middle, and then of course the island.
What are the key areas? Sort of like high 40s, early 50s?
45 is the point of the island. Really good peg there. You don't really, there's a sort of an area like 52 areas, you start to come off the island. That's a poor area. It's not the best area. And then as you work your way further down, some massive weights come there. Often it's the end peg or a couple of pegs. They tend to start a bit further this way on this side, so the whole end of the lake has a bit less pressure.
Okay, right.
So, you know, that 60s onwards can throw up some, I mean, I've seen people catch 200-300 pounds
But we've got a beautiful breeze pushing down this end of the lake, the sort of cafe end of the lake today.
Yeah.
So this end, we're sitting at peg 29, I think that is.
Yeah.
This looks fantastic. This looks like the end to me.
Yeah, again, it would depend where your match is or where your day is or whatever, you know, because again, Rob, once you start getting towards the ends of these big lakes, I never feel the fish are right in the corner. I feel if the pegging would stop, say 27, I can't see a 27 being beat. Okay. A good peg, a well-pegged match would bring the anglers right down to like limit the space a little bit.
So
you know, if I was having an event here,
being
that's what
pegged
I'd do.
tight in the corner just doesn't give the fish enough space, really, doesn't it? They've
because
got to get in the corner.
They've got to come into the corner where there's a lot of pressure on them. So, you know, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't turn it down, because a lot of the time here, 29, there's a bit of a bowl here. You'd fancy it for a bit of an edge.
100%,
and that's a feature on the other lakes. But for me, on this lake, real hot areas, 21, 22, 23. That's a brilliant area just into this bay. Then you sort of look the other side, 17, 18, 19 can throw a lot of fish up. It tends to be what the wind's doing today. Like you say, wind's blowing this way. If I was on 21, 22 today, I'd be mega confident.
There's a lot of fish on that sort of like 16 to 25 metre area. Again, shallow fishing. We've done a little bit of shallow fishing today and caught a load of fish. So there's loads of fish feeding. Right, stocking wise, there's a lot of crassio in this lake.
There is.
Now, for people who don't know what crassios are very similar to F1s, but they're a separate species, aren't they? They're more of a European style species, and only a couple of venues in the UK have got these fish.
I'm going to say, Rob, they're not a winning fish at Hayfield.
No.
For me, it's all about the carp.
They're about £1, just over £1 a piece, aren't they?
Probably a bit more, but they go a bit funny in matches. It's really weird, right? I think they don't take the pressure the same. We've fished for them. We know that they're a bit funny.
Yeah.
The most reliable fish are carp. There is an unbelievable head of bream and skimmers in here, like ridiculous.
Okay.
So, you know, I've fished a few matches here where 40, 50 pounder skimmers and 3 or 4 carp can be really good. So it's not always about the carp, but that would be my focus, the carp, and that lends itself to the baits. That, you know, I mean, what baits would you say for this lake?
To be honest, Lee, I can't see much further past fishery pellets. You know, you come here, quite often you get a choice of pellets, either scratchings or coppins. We've talked about the difference between the two a load of times. And at the minute, the coppins are really good, both in 8 mils and 6 mils. I think I'll just turn up on the bank, buy a couple of bags from the shop of each, and that'd be my bait for the day. 6 mils for fishing shallow, maybe the 8 mils for fishing on the deck, and that'd be my bait for the day.
I'd bring a tin of corn in case I ended up fishing in the edge.
Okay, yeah.
That's the only thing I would say. I think for fishing in the edge, I would probably want to concentrate on maybe ground bait and corn, something like that. There's a lot of small fish here.
Micros and corn?
You could micros and corn, ground bait and corn. I'm not really too fussed, but I would want to be fishing like double corn or even 2 worms, something like that.
I've got to mention is that we've got an island in this lake. It's Danny's Island Lake, and obviously there's an island in the lake. We've not mentioned about fishing to the island at all. My experience is when I was practicing for the Maven match this and the matches I've fished here, the island's just not a brilliant holding area for fish. The fish seem to want to be on some food a bit closer to the anglers.
I'll tell you when I think the island's fantastic, Rob, in like early spring.
Okay.
When they're looking for those edges, they can be good times. If you come in that sort of time of year, also into like September, October, the island can start to throw up some fish. But one of the biggest problems you face with the island, it's a long way away.
Yeah, it is.
It's 40, 50 metres away at best. It's 60 metres in other places. The problem with that is that's a long way to be accurate.
I feel the fish are a little bit smaller up against the island as
well.
well.
Wind them back a long way. The island is beautiful. It's not necessarily the easiest to cast to because there's trees and that on the island. So for me, the island is a proper last ditch. I need to nick a fish or 2 rather than making it my main option.
Okay, so let's just talk quick synopsis of methods. Short pole maybe on the deck.
Yep.
Long pole shallow.
Yep.
Pellet waggler, maybe a bomb underneath that if it's a.
I'd always set one up.
Just in case, and that's your lot, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it is. Look, one of the key things with Hayfield is you need to be ready. You've got to have an edge rig.
Yeah, I guess so.
You've got to have an edge rig. If you're every peg, you're not even picking your edge rig up. If you're 1 miss 2, you're probably spending the last 2 hours there.
Yeah, maybe.
Right?
Yeah. Some big hippos late on.
And I would also bring my method rod because I don't go fishing without my method rod.
Yeah.
So I would consider underneath my loose feed pellets method or bomb. You know, I'd have to consider that on the day. But that's up to the anglers to make that decision.
Superb.
So Rob, we are over on Big and Little Adams now. 2 great lakes. I spent a lot of winters here fishing here. Silverfish matches, like 5-6 years running, brilliant fishing. And I started to come on a few open matches and just come and fish here. You can see how popular it is. This is like late on a Tuesday evening and there's
people here fishing.
It's a great place.
So let's get this right. On our left hand side,
down
your
here.
right as you guys look at it, that is Little Adams.
Yeah.
What's on there? 30 pegs, something like that?
Yeah, there's 30 pegs on there.
And then to our right is Big Adams, isn't it?
That's right. So there's obviously more pegs on Big Adams, but actually when you stand and look at it, there's not a huge difference, Rob.
Similar in size, I'd say.
Yeah, effectively it's got a longer arm down on Big Adams, which isn't the best of areas. On Little Adams, again, as we've talked about, these lakes are deep, all right? You are looking at least 12, 14 feet.
Similar depths to Danny's Island, aren't they?
Absolutely, which means it's dominated by short pole and it's dominated by shallow fishing.
Okay.
There is no island to chuck to here. And yeah, waggler and that can play a part, but mainly pole shallow. The trouble is, when you look at these types of lakes, once everybody starts chucking out their wagglers,
all seem to be casting in the same spot. Whenever I fished a match here, everyone seems to be casting in the same area.
Which is fine in winter, but obviously a lot of the time in summer the fish will come to you.
Yeah.
So
I always feel the
pole,
space is round the edge as well. You know, the space, because the nature of the size, the shape of the lake, the space is round the outside of the lake rather than in the centre.
I fished a couple of UK champs here and it was dominated by shallow fishing.
Okay.
Like absolutely all the winning weights were shallow fishing pole.
Right.
On the pole.
So what are we saying shallow fishing wise? We're saying like 2-3 foot deep.
Yeah, we're looking, you got to remember you're fishing for carp, not F1.
Carp, yeah.
So I'm talking from like 18 inches to 4 foot. You're going to need rigs to cover those depths basically. You're fishing 6mm pellets.
Okay.
Right? An 8mm on the hook can be fantastic.
Right.
You're fishing positively, you're going to want 13 olives.
Would you go down the route
like
maybe of feeding some 4mm? If you're fishing out and out shallow?
I wouldn't, because there's too many silvers and bream in these.
Right,
For me,
okay.
on these lakes, it's 6mm pellets,
Yeah.
right? That is you're fishing for carp.
Proper
fish. You know, proper gear. You're going to want 16 hooks, you're going to want 13 olives. They're not going to just give you a steady, they're going to give you the run round these fish.
Proper big,
you know, you're looking
fish.
at that.
And bait wise, let's just talk about quantities, because are we talking about just getting a bag from the shop, or are we talking about 2 bags maybe, go through a couple of bags?
I definitely want 2 bags of 6mm with me. I take a bag of 8s as a minimum, Rob. You know, you're going to be looking at that, you're going to be feeding plenty of bait. These are hungry fish, and the biggest thing I want to finish on is the edge.
Yeah, well, I wanted to talk about the edge, because whenever I've watched a match here, the last 2 hours on these sort of like corner areas of the lake, especially on Little Adams, they've really rocked up in the edge. We've got some famous pegs here. You can probably see the bridge behind us. Either side of that bridge, every time I've fished it, has been absolutely solid with fish in the edge, in the margins. And what are we dumping in the edge? What are we putting in the edge?
I mean, for me, ground bait, in the summer months, it's ground bait. Okay, that's the best way. You can be really aggressive here. You can feed 3-4 tins of corn, you can feed 1 kilo or 2 kilos.
I always
of
feel the
bait.
nature of how these lakes are pegged as well. You get space in the corners.
You get space. Look, there's a match on tonight. There's a dozen people here. They're all going to have plenty of room. They're going to be feeding aggressively.
Margin madness.
That's exactly right. So if your match is later in the day here, or if you're just coming pleasure fishing here in the latter stages of the day, the margins are key. I've actually been here on cold days where I think you're never going to catch in the margins. And they still throw up.
So we're saying ground bait, what we're saying is hook bait, corn?
I like corn, there's a lot of perching.
You love corn, don't you?
Yeah, there's a lot of perching, so worm is great, but you've got to be careful.
You're going to get perched out.
You sometimes get perched out, so if you're fishing...
You want something that you can just sit there positively, and you're not going to get dragged around by little fish, and you just wait for a big fish to come in and bang, you can catch him first time.
Definitely. So these are really, they're the main tactics on this sort of lake, and particularly in that core summer period where we are now.